This chapter is pretty tragic. This part mostly deals with child abuse. And I'm wondering if Ryukishi really thought this far ahead about how his story was going to develop. If when he was making his outlines, he's like, "Yeah, this is." Well, okay. Here's the thing. Chapter one's like a spooky mystery, right? And it's one of the best I ever read. I still think to this day it's one of the best I ever read. It's so suspenseful. It has an ending that makes you wanting more, right? They're right behind me, and like just turn around and look who's behind you. Chapter two is like The Hills Have Eyes or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or something. There's like a family you don't want to get involved with, right? The Sonozakis. And it deals with a bunch of history from like World War II. And a bunch of horrible things start happening. Torture devices get involved. Just the Sonozakis aren't like deformed monsters, which is scarier, I think. Yeah, that also has like a horror vibe to it. But this chapter three doesn't really have that much of a horror vibe to it. There's drama. And horror is drama with a monster, but this is mostly just drama so far right now. There's some mystery, like revolving around Satoshi and what happened to that and why people won't talk about him. But for the most part, this seems like a bunch of things that maybe Ryukishi saw in real life. That maybe an amalgamation of a bunch of things he saw working with the Japanese CPS. So I don't know how much he intended for that to seep into his writing. Maybe he did, I don't know. Just this made me really appreciate reading this visual novel, made me appreciate how good the 2006 anime was. That first season. Of course they had to cut things out for time, but I think they cut out things that you just don't need. And there was a bunch of stuff that I liked that they cut out, but I'm like, yeah, you still don't need it. For instance, Tomitake, right? He became part of the after school club. You got to be with him a little bit in that first chapter. I thought it was real cute. It made me think about things that happened in my life. But do you really need that part? Like his character isn't explored that much in the second chapter. Not so much. He's talking to a sidekick, but you don't get too much about his character. And then in the third chapter, well, right now he's absent so far. Maybe he'll show up again, but I don't know. How important was that development from the first chapter? That he joined their club. They got along with him. They liked him. It's not that important. So you can just cut that out. It's not like Umineko, where they cut out a whole bunch of stuff and you kind of needed that information, but they just don't have the time for it. There's too many characters. There's too much information. But Higurashi is not like that. They just focus on one or two characters, and then each chapter focuses on one or two, and then you get to know them and you get to appreciate them and learn their interactions. So, I mean, if you cut some things out that you don't need, it's not that big of a deal, I think. People were telling me that Shion, her character got done dirty, but I don't think so. I think they did a good job with her so far, but maybe I'll need to see more. Anyway, so Teppei's a scumbag, right? And all of Satoko's friends are trying to figure out how to pull her out of that situation. Everyone's getting frustrated. Everyone's yelling at each other. They're getting mad. And they're like, it's just drama. And Teppei's abusing Satoko and making sure not to leave any obvious marks. And Keiichi and Irie are getting frustrated to the point of tears because of how inept government bureaucracy is. Ryukichi putting some of his old job into his writing. But okay, so now things I think they're revving up now. We're climbing on top of we're climbing up on that roller coaster, right? We're going like a chunk. It's because we're starting to get more vertical. Yep. I went home and washed the day's sweat off in the shower. Normally I could reset everything by taking a shower and forgetting all the bad things, but that didn't happen today. I got out of the shower to find fresh underwear placed neatly in the laundry basket. Normally I didn't stop to think about it, but today I felt happy at my mother's consideration. Better appreciate your mom. At the same time, however, it made me realize how much Satoko must be suffering. At the very moment I was appreciating this gentle kindness, Satoko might be being bruised by her uncle's cruel words. I went up to the second floor and shut myself in the bedroom. Then, facing my desk, I folded my arms. My topic of thought, of course, was Satoko. We thought that if we could just get the public agency to interview in the right way, the problem would be solved. But with what Coach said, I didn't think it would be so easy. Satoko was obstinate, and she would stubbornly deny the abuse and try to endure it. And that was the act of atonement towards Satoshi, who had protected her before and then run away. As long as she thought that way, the situation wouldn't be so simple. But earlier, before Coach, I made a clear declaration. If I thought Satoko was in danger, then I would do what I had to do. In the end, that meant I was going to wait and see too. Nevertheless, I thought I'd drawn a clear line than Coach or my friends had. Yeah, you're special. If the time came, I would report it over the phone. Given Satoko's personality, she might criticize me if she found out. But I believed it was ultimately the best decision. Wait, Keiichi. Would that really be all it would take to make the problem go away? Say that I reported it to a public agency, like the Child Consultation Center. What if they stuck to their wait-and-see attitude like last year again? Last year they decided to do just that, and the situation improved temporarily. But then the aunt, thinking herself a laughingstock, increased her tormenting in secret. In the end, things became more underhanded than ever before. This year it was her uncle. I had just seen him for the first time today, but that man seemed much more direct, much more violent than the word underhanded could imply. He wasn't like their aunt. No, not that subtle. He was more direct. He might also assault her with punches and kicks. That could easily be discerned from the bruises and such I saw on Satoko's body. Shit, you're too naive, Keiichi Maibara. However heroic it may seem to report what was happening, if it didn't save her, then it doesn't mean much, if anything. Reporting things to the public agency was only one option, and leaving everything to them would be dangerous. We would need something more to guarantee Satoko's safety. I scratched madly at my head, thinking, then tilted back, wanting at least a little bit of calm. The memories of angry arguing with my friends today came to mind. I was embarrassed I hadn't realized it until Arena said something. She was right. My house is big. Compared to all the houses with the straw-thatched roofs in Hinamizawa, it was really big. We did actually have empty rooms. I never thought that we were affluent, but also never that we were poor. I just didn't admit it because people would think I was arrogant. But maybe my family really is wealthy. We had a few rooms that we could lend to Satoko. The guest rooms are only in use when people related to my dad's job come and stay every once in a while. Plus, I've cleaned up a few of the rooms my dad uses for storage. They could work for her as well. As for food expenses, that might have been a more serious problem than a kid like me could imagine. Lunch every day would be manageable. All of our friends would have to bring a little bit more for lunch than they usually did. With everyone pecking at everyone's food anyway, it would be manageable. For breakfast and dinner, though, that would be up to Mom. I would need to convince her to lend Satoko more than just a room. Of course, I don't even think convincing her of that would be easy. Oh, really? Mom's, About how much did it cost for one person to eat? How many tens of thousands of yen per month? They couldn't complain about it if I shouldered that, could they? I had only 20,000 yen in savings, but it was something. What is that, 10 or 20? That's like, is it $200 or something like that? I actually had even more, thanks to New Year's gifts and such. But my parents had taken all that and put it into a fixed time deposit. If I could get access to that, it should add up to a lot of money. And if I got that far, I should ask Mion and Rena to share some of the burden. Of course, I wouldn't depend on that. Rena got mad at me, didn't she? About how I shouldn't just shove responsibility onto others. I'd have to ask for help. Even so, I'd basically be saving her myself. I would follow through on it. Oh, but it wouldn't only be food expenses. There were a lot of things that you couldn't do without, like baths and laundry. My mother was awfully methodical and strict about cutting out inefficiencies, and for once that was troublesome. She might even make a reference to the money it would cost for the detergent Sadako would use for her own clothes. You really think about that? You're about your own mom? I couldn't think only about food expenses. I needed more money. Hey, wait, Keiichi. Since when was this all about money? Even if you could afford it, you would need your parents' permissions first. They'd be looking after a young girl for a really long time. What would I say to persuade them? Just calm down a little, Keiichi, and you'll realize right away that you can't. Even if you asked them seriously, they would tell you to call the police. Even if you managed to gain their empathy, why would the Maibara family have to shoulder all of the burden by itself? That's what would happen. That was it. It was very sad and frustrating, but no matter how much I wanted to help, my resolution alone couldn't save anything. I'm kind of remembering... guys.
そんなにも子供って無力なのかよ。
I felt frustrated. I believed my feelings were stronger than anyone else's. I even thought they were stronger than Coach's. And yet, at that point, there were 2 knocks at my door, and Mom poked her head inside.
起きてたの？
What's up?
さっきからご飯ってずっと呼んでるわよ。
あ、今行く。
As someone financially dependent on his parents, I shouldn't say this, but I just sat around doing nothing, and food suddenly appeared. It felt so natural to me that I'd shamelessly thought of it as the responsibility of the parents who gave birth to me. But when I realized that natural thing was actually a right, I came to realize just how hard it was to grant that privilege to others. Even the boring meal in front of me, Jesus, no better than it ever was, had more meaning than that tonight. There was food for 3 on the table right now, for Dad, for Mom, and for me. I couldn't imagine how hard it would be to add another place at the table. Think, Keiichi. If it was hard to make food for 4, then just think about how 4 people could eat food made for 3. Oh, I changed around the way I thought, and with that I began to consider an unthinkably bold plan. That's right. I didn't need to get my parents' permission. She should just live here in secret. I just got upset when I found out a little while ago. But if I remembered right, if you climbed out the window and then shimmied down to the first floor roof or the gutter, you could go in and out of the house directly from my room. Satako's physical ability far surpassed my own, so it would be even easier for her. I hadn't even thought about it, but her living here secretly was actually a necessity. I'd only have to bring Satoko to my house when the public agency said they should wait and see. In other words, if Satoko's uncle continued to be her guardian. If, in such a situation, word got out that she was here, her uncle would barge in and drag Satoko back with him. Her uncle was her rightful guardian, so my parents would hand her over without an argument, no doubt. So, I needed to keep it a secret that she was living here. If it needs to be a secret, then having my parents' help would mean a lot, but gotta deceive your allies first, like they always say. This guy never involves his parents in anything. All these horrible things keep happening. He's like, nah, Mom doesn't need to know. Okay. Persuading my parents was an unrealistic proposition, so I searched for a way to have her live here in secret. All this is insane. When I was around, she would just have to be really quiet in my room on the 2nd floor. The issue was the daytime. If she was hiding from her uncle, then she shouldn't go to school. It might be lonely, but not going would be the better option. I could easily teach Satoko the stuff she learns in her grade. Actually, during school, I mostly help all the younger kids rather than study my own stuff. During the day, I would need to go to school, so I wouldn't be at home. My parents respected my privacy now that I was this age, so they wouldn't go snooping around my room while I was gone. That's what you think. I think. If she holed herself up in my room, it would be okay, right? If my parents did come, thanks to where the 2nd floor was, she could hear their approach from the sound of them coming up the stairs. There would be a little bit of time before they got all the way up. I estimated a few seconds, that she would be able to hide herself in the closet. Wait, Keiichi. Something doesn't make sense. This is kind of cute. If she can't go to school, then what will she do for lunch? Calm down already. I could just leave her my own lunch, right? I should just go to school without lunch and get everyone else to split theirs with me. Okay, that's good. No more contradictions or oversights, right? Oh, breakfast and dinner. I could somehow get her to go without breakfast. Oh my god. I could go with 2 meals a day when I sleep in on Sundays after all. Every night I'd pretend as though I had a bigger appetite than ask for a bigger helping. And then I could just somehow give part of that to Satoko. As a test, I stood up from my seat with my plate of fish in my hands.
どうしたのケイチ。ご飯は座って食べなさい。
Hungry for fish.
ちょっと気分が変えたくなってさ。自分の部屋で食べてもいいかな。
ボロボロ落として汚すぞ。食事は食卓で食べなさい。
ごめん。
Well, that was fast. Easily defeated. Hey, wait. I only tried to take away 1 plate of fish, and they ganged up on me? In reality, it was impossible for me to smuggle food away without my parents knowing about it. But it must have been worth taking the time to think about. There must be some trick, some method to avoid them realizing. You just say something. Oh, just open your mouth. Even if I think about it for one day, I might think of one tomorrow. Even if I can't think of one today, I might think of one tomorrow. There. My appetite was rapidly fading, so I finished early and went back to my room. I went back there and tried to think about it from Satoko's point of view. For example, let's say my parents were coming up the stairs right now. I've got to hide. I opened the closet. Clatter, clatter. It didn't open quietly. Hey, wait, didn't it always open real smooth and quiet? Why was it suddenly doing this now? Was this house even structurally safe? Was it already showing signs of dilapidation? Or were the hinges just not greased well enough? Could I just apply some lubricating wax? Like they're playing the sad music. You know, it is kind of sad that this situation is happening, but it's kind of funny, like all the things he's going through, trying to figure out how to save his friend. It's ridiculous thoughts. The sound itself may have been soft, but it left me uneasy as to whether my parents would detect it opening when they climbed the stairs. But this was an easy problem. I could do something about it. I just had to fix it up a little bit so it didn't make any noise anymore. For now, I'll close myself in this closet as though I'd successfully hid. He's having fun by himself. I basically always left my futon on the floor. I couldn't think of any reason my parents would want to go into my closet. Even so, there still might be some reason they would. I might need to construct some sort of camouflage so that she wouldn't be noticed, even if they did open it. But the more she worried about that, the less she'd have to have time to hide, meaning it would be more likely they'd hear a noise. And then I suddenly had to go to the bathroom. The bathroom? The need to use the bathroom, so obvious and yet such a fatal flaw. The only bathroom was on the first floor. It would be absolutely impossible for her to use it without my family realizing. I might need to set up a portable toilet, like a chamber pot, I guess. This is horrible. Satoko would hate it, so she could go in my room. I'm glad I didn't get that. But the stench would be pretty terrible. Anyone sensitive would probably notice the smell without even coming into the room. The bath was okay, though. She could just take a bath when my parents were out. But I couldn't do anything about a toilet. This reminded me of those homeless people that actually squat in Japanese people's homes sometimes. Like that one woman. Where when her stomach started to hurt and my parents were lazing around downstairs, she'd be in trouble. It was then that I noticed that I'd been clawing at my head with both hands. I sat down in the dark closet with my knees against my chest. I buried my face in them and tore my hair. The more I thought, the more contradictions popped up. The more I thought, the more things failed. And the more I worried, the more I was reminded of how little power I actually had. My back started to hurt from staying in the cramped space for so long. But if I was to shelter Satoko, I'd need to force her to feel this pain. Calm down. To live in such a dark, narrow, suffocating place forever. But it would still be better than being abused by her uncle, or so I wanted to think. I don't know. I don't know about that. It got so hard to breathe, so I gave in and crawled out of the closet. I looked at the clock, and to my surprise, it was 3:30 in the morning. Gee, how long were you in there? I'd felt like it was so little time, but it was unbelievably long. When I realized that, I was slammed with a turbo urge to sleep as if time had only just caught up with me. I didn't have enough strength to fight it, and I fell flat onto my futon. Shit, I can't just go to sleep like this. If I waste any time, that'll mean I'll be taking the same wait-and-see attitude that Mian and Coach and everyone else did. I needed to keep worrying about how to rescue Satoko for a minute, or even a second longer, than everyone else. Isn't there a better way? Isn't there a better way? That one phrase I spoke to myself swirled around and around in a spiral, and steadily took over my entire mind. For my last moment of consciousness, I thought, there were a lot of blind spots in what I considered tonight, and I absolutely wasn't wrong for having those ideas. Tomorrow, I would suggest this bold plan to the others. Mian might be able to help somehow, and Reno was really sharp, so she might have a good suggestion. They're both gonna talk some sense into her, I think. And above all, we needed to rescue Satoko once again, with everyone helping out. I felt pathetic for letting myself fall asleep. I'm sorry, Satoko. He is struggling. The ceiling blurred into view. It was hot. There was a thin layer of moist sweat on me. The voices of the cicadas permeating my room were somehow grating to my head.
あれ、今日、日曜日じゃないよな。
I remembered today was a weekday and quickly brought myself to consciousness. And then finally, I leapt out of bed. The clock read a little before 10. Oh, we're late. I was totally late. When I wandered downstairs, my mom would get mad at me. There was nothing I could do, though. After reviewing the schedule for the day for a moment, I suitably rearranged the stuff in my bag. I hurried and got dressed and went down the stairs. There was no sign of my parents anywhere. Maybe they went out somewhere together. So that's how it was. My mother had probably woken me up once this morning, but then I fell back to sleep without remembering it. And my parents, thinking that I got into school, left. Something like that probably happened. I went to the front door, and as I expected, it was locked. Looked like I was right. It was further evidence of my speculation being correct. When I realized my parents weren't here, I suddenly felt less like I had to rush to get to school. There was one portion of breakfast left in the dining room. Probably mine. The milk they'd poured into it had gone warm since a while ago. When I realized how hard it would be to sneak food for Satoko. Yesterday I had cried. Aw, man. Well, thinking back on it, food wasn't the only issue in that regard. I wasn't in the position where I could care for Satoko by myself anyway. It's such a heavy thing just to save a single person. I'd seen this on TV and in comics all the time. Those feel-good words about how you'd save your friends for sure and such. Was that why I ran my mouth like that, swearing to save her, because I wanted to feel good about it? No, that absolutely wasn't true. Because the fact was that I couldn't save her. Like, one more person is not that big of a deal, I think. My cousin's friend had to live with them for a while. It didn't seem that bad, but I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Because I didn't want to think like an adult. Like I couldn't do anything but watch. Had Satoko gone to school today? I immediately realized that was such a meaningless question. Whether or not she did, there wouldn't be a change in the environment she'd been placed in. If I could save her and no one else could either, then we could only pray for a miracle.
俺たちは、無力か。
With the vague goal of getting to school in mind, I sluggishly put on my shoes and stumbled out the front door. I had only overslept for by 2 or 3 hours, but the sunlight and the air felt completely different from how they usually were in the morning. Well, of course they did. Once 10 o'clock came around, you can barely call it morning anymore. I didn't feel like walking the same old route to school. I needed to ultimately end up there, but it was like I didn't want to choose the shortest route, the most proactive one to get to school. Put in a more positive light, maybe I wanted some time to walk by myself and think. I had to go to school, partly to make sure Satoko was safe. But I hadn't come up with any plans yet. Nothing since last night. So the path I took from my house was in the complete opposite direction. If I went this way, I'd pass Rena's house and the dam site. It would be quite a detour. I calculated how long of a detour it would end up being. Then, satisfied with the answer, I started to walk. Rena had brought me here to the dam site a few times. One section of it had turned into an unlawful, oversized garbage dump, and Rena really liked going fishing for junk in there. Without that, she'd come off as a completely normal girl too. I can think of a few other qualities she could do without, but whatever. Why is everyone catching strays right now? His mom, Rena. The view quickly opened up wide, and I was hit by a strong wind. There was no shelter here at the big dam site. Maybe it was a good thing I came here, thought. At the very least, it was more healthy to think about stuff in a place like this instead of my cramped bedroom. I took a deep breath and filled my lungs with the rich, cold air unique to Hinamizawa. Ring! I turned around reflexively. It was a bicycle bell. Considering where I was standing, I don't think they were trying to get me out of the way. They'd rang the bell because they wanted something from me.
いやあ、申し訳ないね。
I was just talking about you.
君、ひなみ沢の人だよね。
そうですけど。
I've seen this person around a few times. Right, I remembered. His name, I think, was Tomitake, a freelance photographer who lived in Tokyo. He would zealously visit Hinamizawa every season to take pictures, or so Mian and the others told me, I think.
古出神社ってここからどう行けばいいか教えてもらえないかい？マップを宿に置いてきちゃったみたいでね。困ってたんだよ。
ここから神社ですか？
I knew where everything was in my head, but explaining how to get there was difficult. I was a little irritated at having been bothered for this, but when I realized it meant my detour actually meant something, that feeling faded quickly.
教えてもいいですけど、ちょっと口で説明するのは難しいですよ。
Come with me.
一緒でよければ連れて行ってあげますけど。
え？それはかたじけないね。助かるよ。あ、でもいいのかい？君の用事は。
Tomitake finally appeared to have realized how strange it was for a student like me to be here at this time of day. I smoothly told him not to worry about it, then turned my back and started walking toward Furude Shrine. Tomitake hurried to turn his bike around and came after me.
ごめんごめん。気にしないでくれよ。男には組織を離れて一匹狼になりたい時もあるんだからね。
What a free-minded freelancer. It was easy for me too, that he was under that impression.
僕は富武。フリーカメラマンさ。専門は野鳥と風景。まだまだ無名だけどね。
It seemed absurd for him to introduce himself when I was just showing him to the shrine, but he gave me his name, so I needed to give mine back.
前原圭一です。まあよろしく。
圭一くんかい。よろしくね。
He seemed like a pretty silly man, but that felt kind of good considering I'd been suffocating with worry over Satoko all night. Along the way, Tomitake spoke at length to me about how precious the nature in Hinamizawa was, and how it was a treasure trove of rare wild birds, despite my not having asked. That save. I wasn't interested in what he had to say, but he seemed to be enjoying himself, so I left him to it.
この石段を上がれば神社の境内です。
ありがとう。助かったよ。ああ、ちょっと遅刻しちゃったかな。
As Tomitake mumbled to himself, he left his bicycle nearby and started to climb the stairs quickly. I didn't have a watch, but as far as my internal clock could guess, it was still a little late in the morning. School wasn't very far from here. Maybe I could kill a little more time until then. With that in mind, I went up the steps in pursuit of Tomitake. When I reached the top of the long staircase, I arrived at the wide, long, open shrine grounds that were far too grand looking for this tiny village. Tomitake, oh, there he is. It looked like he was supposed to be meeting someone here. Then he got lost and ended up being late. He was bowing to a lady who must have been the very person he was meeting. That lady, I knew her.
あら、前原くんじゃない。こんにちは。今日は学校はお休みかしら？
あれ？なんだ、圭一くんついてきたのかい？
別にそんなつもりはないですよ。ただ、ちょっと時間つぶしがしたかっただけです。
あらあら、重役出勤とは優雅なものね。さすがは有名人。今から大物ぶりを発揮してること。
What was I, a celebrity? Well, she did say my name out of nowhere anyway. I was oddly concerned by what she meant by famous.
あら、私の名前はまだ思い出せない？
It's strange for Keiichi to know her, but not be introduced to him.
高野美代さんだよ。村の診療所に勤めてる。圭一くんは健康そうだから、あまり病院のお世話にはならないかな。
せっかくお知り合いになれたんだから、今度病気か何かできたら、ちょっぴりだけサービスしてあげようかしらね。
This lady named Takano-san. I kind of didn't remember her. Maybe we'd passed each other on the street a few times, but I was pretty sure this was the first time we'd talked. Well, this is Hinamizawa. Even if I don't know a person's name, it's not unusual for them to know mine. I glanced at Takano and saw she had a bag and a camera.
ひょっとして、二人とも写真仲間ですか？あ、それで待ち合わせを。
仲間でなんてとんでもない。素人の私に、二郎さんが優しくてほどきをしてくださるだけなのよ。ねえ。
そんなことないよ。高野さんは飲み込みが早いからね。僕の指導なんかなくても、実に自由に撮影をこなすよ。本当さ。
I couldn't tell which of them was ahead in the conversation. Well, they were certainly one couple you wouldn't get tired of watching.
いよいよあさってが綿流しね。今年はいい写真が撮れるといいんだけど。
明日の設営シーンからレンズに収めるつもりだよ。そういう準備風景からもお祭りの活力を捉えたいんだ。
Oh, I just remembered. There was some village festival called Watanagashi or something the day after tomorrow on Sunday.
ひなみ沢の守り神、お社様に感謝するため、古い布団を積み重ねて供養する、そんなお祭りでしたっけ？
Oh, her favorite subject?
あら、ご名答。前原くん、引っ越してきたばかりにしては博識ね。そう。お社様に感謝するためのお祭り。
Takano smiled somehow meaningfully, but didn't tell me what part of the festival to thank Oyashiro-sama needed to be laughed at.
やれやれ。高野さんは。でも、どうだろうね、今年は。
二度あることは三度ある。そしてもう四度あったのよ。五度目がないと言える方が何の根拠もないと思うけれど。
I knew what they meant by their whispered exchange. On the day of Watanagashi, a freak death always occurs, which people call Oyashiro-sama's curse, and a disappearance occurs that people called being demoned away. These strange events have happened 4 years running, and Watanagashi, rapidly approaching the day after tomorrow, marked the 5th.
村の旧敵にたたりをなすお社様か。今年もあるとして、果たしてその矛を受けるのは誰になるだろうね。あ、僕はここに来るたびにちゃんとお参りしてお賽銭を入れてる。僕じゃないことは確かだよ。
あらそう。近年のお社様は異邦人には特に厳しいって話よ。
Yeah, I'm still wondering, how much does he know? Because I forgot that part. How much does he know? And how, like, I mean, based on this, it kind of sounds like you're gonna get got, and she knows it.
引っ越してきたばかりとはいえ、前原くんはちゃんとひなみ沢に住んでる村人だけど、二郎さんは毎年来るだけのただのよそ者。さーて、今年は見逃してもらえるかしら。
ひどいな。
Sweat drop. Tomitake was the only one with a pained grin, but we were all smiling, me included. Oyashiro-sama, the one who used the curse to kill people involved with the dam construction project, one after the other. He killed the dam construction manager, killed Satoko's parents for supporting it, and the next year he even killed her aunt. If the demoning away was part of that curse, then you could add Satoshi to the list of victims. As I thought about it, I realized that in the serial freak death accidents, the overwhelming majority had the last name Hojo. Half of the deaths and disappearances had come from the Hojo family. The Hojo family lived here in Hinamizawa. Did that mean Oyashiro-sama punished and cursed them particularly harshly because despite that they had been in favor of the dam?
里子のおじが帰ってきたって話は聞いてますか？
Takano, who had been enjoying a few words with Tomitake, was caught unaware by the sudden inquiry.
あ、ごめんなさい。今なんて？
いえ、里子の両親がたたり殺されて、おばもたたり殺されて。
I actually don't think this happened in the anime either. I can't remember though.
だったら順番的には、次はおじの番かなって思ったんです。去年のたたりで、おばが無残な死に方をし、それに恐れをなして町に逃げていたやつですよ。お社様は確か、村を捨てて逃げ出そうとするのは許さなかったですよね。
Please kill him. I hadn't intended to be quite this persistent. The funny thing is, he doesn't realize he's asking the right person. But those words, they just flowed out of my mouth without me thinking about it. Right. Oyashiro-sama's curse. I didn't believe in something so unrealistic, of course, but the fact was that every year, unfortunate accidents and incidents happened to enemies of the village. Like Takano had said just now, it happened 4 times in a row. No one could say there wouldn't be a 5th.
ふーん。
She likes this, I think.
面白い説ね。確かに過去の犠牲者を見れば北条姓が多いのは事実。その延長として考えれば、今年は叔父が死ぬか消えるかする可能性は否めないわね。
I like this voice actress.
もう、高野さんは。
He's like, stop it.
起こるかもしれない不幸を笑うのは良くないよ。
How much do you know? That's the I forgot about. I don't remember if he's part of this. It's gotta be, right?
ごめんなさいね。でも、お社様のたたりは私のライフワークだし。
Takano gave off a mysterious, somehow intellectual impression, and her life's work was mysterious in its own right. She probably really liked inexplicable and supernatural phenomena or something.
高野さんは、お社様のたたりに詳しそうですね。どうでしょう。北条の、帰ってきたおじが、たたりに会う可能性は。
あら何？そのおじさんを殺したくて仕方がないみたいね。
Wow.
そんなんじゃないです。
どうだろうね。神様の気まぐれ次第だからね。
前原くん、サンタクロースの正体は知ってる？
Huh? I got a strange question all of a sudden, and I couldn't immediately answer. I actually like that question she gave.
なに？知らないの？パパよ。みんなの家のパパ。
なんだ。
They're the ones who make the Christmas miracle happen. So you gotta make the Christmas miracle happen for yourself, maybe.
そういう意味ですか。そりゃそうですよ。どんなものの正体だって、最終的には人間です。だってここは人間しかいない世界なんですから。すべての現象は人間で解明できるはずです。
I felt like I put that somewhat strangely, but Takano was not as dissatisfied with that reply as I might have guessed.
あら、その年齢のうちからそれに気づけるなんてなかなかね。人間の世で起こる現象は、すべて人間の都合で人間が起こす。
And you know, people who are reading this for the first time, they'd probably be like, why are we getting this angle? Why, during this conversation, are we talking about it's up to humans? Humans are the ones who are responsible for strange happenings. So maybe people would be more, well, we'll see.
では前原くん、もう一度尋ねるわよ。今度はサンタクロースじゃなくて、お社様。お社様のたたりの正体は何かわかるかしら？
Takano took a step towards me and gazed to my eyes as she asked, Santa Claus is really the parents of every family's children. If lionizing that legend was a corporate tactic to try and profit during Christmas sales, then what was Oyashiro-sama really?
あら、あなたが言ったのよ。ここは人間しかいない世界だって。すべての現象は人間で解明できるって。
圭一くん、ここだけの話だよ。高野さんはね、お社様のたたりをめぐる一連の連続開始事件をね、ひなみ沢の村人が何かの儀式に基づいて行っている人為的殺人事件でないかと見ているんだよ。
I think he doesn't know that much, actually.
誤解しないでね。私はそれに至る教義や思想、文化を民族学的見地から研究することがライフワークなの。
But then my question is, why is she always targeting him?
別に犯人が誰かなんてことには全く興味がないのよ。そこだけ勘違いしないでちょうだいね。
I could really tell. I could tell only that she was saying some crazy stuff. To use a food analogy, like you'd be force-feed a duck to be fattened, she forced her words down my throat. That's what it felt like.
そもそもそれを理解するためには、ひなみ沢村が鬼ヶ淵村と呼ばれていた古代にまで遡らなければならない。鬼と血を交わらせたと信じる半人半鬼の仙人たちが。
Takano-san, having entered her home field, leaned forward and began to speak of ridiculous matters. Tomitake realized she was overawing me and interrupted for me.
高野さん。その話をいきなり圭一くんにしても。ほら、彼も面食らってるよ。
あら、そう？ 続きに興味があったらいつでも言ってね。
This would be my favorite conversation.
前原くん
Continue.
くらいの年頃の男の子が好きそうな猟奇的なお話がてんこ盛りなんだから。
ありがとうございます。気が向いたらそのうちに。
For now, I softly and safely gave my refusal. Takano seemed a little unhappy that Tomitake had rained on her parade, but she stopped talking about it then. Even so, it was still a very interesting story. That Oyashiro-sama's curse, which we thought of as strange freaks accidents, deaths, were really homicides, perpetrated by people of the village.
まあ、常識的に考えればそうですよね。タタリなんかで人が死ぬはずない。誰かがタタリになぞらえて殺してるに決まってます。
そうね。それが誰なのかは研究しない方が無難ね。
高野さんは知ってそうですね。証拠はないまでも確信を持っているくらいには。
あら、どうしてそう思うのかしら？
I just kind of felt it vaguely. It didn't seem like her extreme passion for this research would calm down just because these things were taboo or because it was safer and easier. This person loved walking through the profound, forbidden abyss of risks and taboos.
それくらいにしなよ、圭一くん。
Starting to like her a little bit more.
せっかく助けてあげたのに、またお社様のたたりの話が始まっちゃうよ。涼しいうちに散策に行きたかったのにな。
Tomitake seemed a little disappointed not to be able to go on the date he'd planned since I brought it up, a weird topic. But right now, there was something I wanted to ask, just for a little bit. And that was about whether Satoko's uncle will be chosen for the curse this year. If he was, then another miracle would happen, just like last year. A terrible incident would happen again, but it would release Satoko from her unfortunate circumstances once more.
まあ、もちろん、おそらくあの辺りの人たちが関わってるんだろうなっていう憶測は持ってるわよ。鬼ヶ淵村の歴史を研究していれば、自然と至る必然的結末。
それは誰です？
What would I do if I knew? I asked that question to the other me deep inside, but got no reply.
熱心ね。それを知ってどうするつもりかしら？
別に。
知ったら、あなたにも危険が降りかかるかもしれないわよ。5年目のたたりはあなただったりして。
Takano, toying with taboo, gave a devilish satisfied smile, as though nothing in the world would be more amusing. She was probably trying to tease me, but I didn't feel like going along with her little game one bit.
偉そうな能書きでもったいぶってますが、高野さんだってよくは分かってないみたいじゃないですか。
I had felt a tinge of irritation at Takano's roundabout way of speaking, but those emotions escaped my mouth like water flowing through a strainer. Even I was surprised at how directly I'd spoken out about what I felt. Of course, I wasn't the only one taken aback.
あら、言ってくれるわね。坊やなのに挑発までできるの？意外に野生的ね。嫌いじゃないわよ、そういうの。
Takano's tongue poked out of her mouth, and I was convinced it was long, thin, and split in the middle like a snake's.
ならいいわ。教えてあげてもよくってよ。でも、教えてあげる前に3つ誓ってもらうわ。
It's a lot of conditions.
私が何を教えても後悔しない。口外しない。私が言ったなんて絶対言わない。
I gulped firmly and nodded. Tomitake made an exaggerated expression of distress, gave a dry, vague smile, and lit a cigarette.
教えてください。タタリを下しているのは誰です？タタる相手を選んでいるのは誰なんです？
And after I said that, I finally realized why I wanted to know. It's a good scene. Many of my classmates were playing freely in the schoolyard. A few of them had just run out of the school building after putting on their shoes and tapping their toes on the ground. It looked like they had just finished eating lunch. From a time manipulating standpoint, I guess I succeeded.
前原さん、
I come to school whenever I want.
大丈夫なんですか？
What's up? A few girls noticed me and came running over. It was only natural they were worried. You'd think if someone wasn't there in the morning, they'd be out for the rest of the day.
まあ、遅刻さ。気にしないでくれ。それより、聡子はどうだ？今日は来てるか？
The girls exchanged glances. I saw a thin shadow fall over their faces and knew the answers without needing to hear them reply. Satoko was absent today too. When all was said and done, after being out 3 days, she'd only come back for 1. And now she was out again. Who knew she would come tomorrow?
うん。でも、さとこちゃんから電話があったって先生言ってました。
風邪って言ってたよね。みんな家に帰ったらうがいをちゃんとしましょうって先生言ってました。
Wait a minute, Chie. That's a little thick-headed, don't you think? You're a teacher, aren't you? Why can't you be more sensitive and catch on to the fact that your pupil is sending out an SOS? But even if she did, there was nothing we could hope for. The most she could do was a home visitation. She didn't have any right to take Satoko from her uncle into safety. No matter the result, it would end up just like the public agencies, with a wait-and-see attitude. It would just piss Satoko's uncle off, and her suffering would only grow deeper. Then wasn't saying she had a cold the best option?
そうだな。みんなも風邪に気をつけろよ。もう行っていいぜ。昼休みはまだ長いぞ。
The girls excitedly scattered into the schoolyard.
ケイチくん！
Rena was yelling out the classroom window, waving her hand. A moment later, Mion and Rika poked their heads out too.
ケイチまでお休みしましたから、とても心配しましたのですよ。でもよかった。顔色もそんなに悪くないし、とりあえず元気そう。
I felt a little uncomfortable with her saying that I didn't look sick, but I didn't care that much.
どうしたの？寝坊？
遅刻は遅刻だろ。それとも、電車の事故で遅刻したとでも言えば、許してくれるのか？
寝坊？
Mion was being a little persistent. Was she going to put on her club president cap and scold me for being late? Well, maybe she didn't have it in for me, so I briefly stated that she was right.
まだね、お弁当あるよ。みんなで食べよう。やっぱりね、ケイチくんがいないと盛り上がらないよね。
聡子は休みなんだな。
Even Rena, feigning cheerfulness, couldn't stand to hear that, and her face darkened.
朝、電話があったらしいよ。風がぶり返したから、また休むってさ。長引くかもしれないって言ってた。かわいそうなので、みんなでお見舞いに行こうという話が出ていますのですよ。
何言ってんだよ、リカちゃん。
Not pleased with Rika-chan's wearing a wide smile as though it was a happy occasion, I threw cold water on her.
聡子が風邪なんかじゃないことは、俺たちが一番知ってるだろ。たとえ冗談でも、二度とそういう白々しいことを言うな。
He's so hard on everyone around him. All his, good friends.
次は怒るからな。
Rika furrowed her brow, looked down, and mumbled an apology.
ケイチくんだけじゃないよ。みんな辛いよ。
俺だけが悩んでるなんて思ってない。でも、みんな何もできないのは本当だろ。
それはそうだけど。でも、
I got the feeling I would cause another fight if this exchange went on. So I apologized first.
ごめん。謝るから、今の話は忘れてくれ。辛いのは、みんなも同じだよな。ああ。
It was at least clear, however, that I was the only one who had worried so much about rescuing her. At the very least, everyone else probably got the normal amount of sleep last night. That means I care the most. This guy probably had good dreams too. Wow, he's even he's even getting mad that they had good dreams. They definitely hadn't stayed up all night thinking so desperately.
登校してきていきなりこんなこと聞いて、気を悪くするかもしれないけど、ケイちゃん、今日遅刻したよね。さとこが今日欠席したこととは関係ある？
は？ミオ、お前、何の話してるんだ？
ケイちゃんはたまに、ちょっとつ盲信なところがあるからね。今朝、さとこと一緒にケイちゃんも休んだとき、さとこを家から連れ出して、どこかにかくまったんじゃないかって、本気で思った。
I was thinking about it. Easy for you to say. If I could have, I'd have done that last night. None of them had really thought about how difficult that clear as day solution was. I was up thinking all night, thinking until the night was brightening. And then I concluded that I couldn't do anything of the sort.
バカかお前。人間一人かくまうなんて、できるもんかよ。
そうだね。ごめん。気を悪くしたなら謝るよ。
別にいいよ。それより、飯にしようぜ。腹が減ってんだ。
I took my bento box out of the bag. Everyone moved to make a spot for me to eat.
前原くん、今来たんですか？
And just as I was about to stick my chopsticks in, Chie sensei came along.
あ、はい。遅刻してすみません。寝坊しまして。
What the heck? Even the teacher was giving me that strange look.
お弁当を食べたら、委員長と前原くんは職員室に来てください。ちょっとお話がありますので。
Probably about Satoko, I thought. Sensei left it at that and went back out into the hallway.
弁当を食うまでもないだろ。行こうぜ、ミオ。
うん。そうだね。
Mian and I exchanged looks, nodded to each other, and got up.
さとこちゃんの話だろうね。
No doubt about it. They were saying she had a code, but everyone in class knew the truth. I didn't think that would have reached the teacher's ears by now.
僕がずっととぼけるので、僕に聞くのをやめたのでしょう。
Revealing the truth to the teacher would only worsen the situation. Was that why she hadn't said anything? Or was it because she was Satoko's friend and knew that she was trying to endure the trial of her uncle's abuse in order to get her brother to come home?
どうする？今のうちに私たちなりの統一見解を出した方がいいかもね。
リカちゃんはどうしたい？
Satoko's closest and best friend was Rika. However much I pretended to be her Nini, it didn't come close to the amount of time they'd spent together. So I felt like her opinion should be held in the highest regard.
俺は、サトコがどうしておじにいじめられてるのを耐えてるか知ってる。
Everyone looked startled and turned to me.
昔のサトコは、いじめられると、きっと泣きながら兄の背中に隠れてた。でも結局、そのせいで兄が逃げてしまったんだと、サトコは思ってる。
誰に聞いたのかな？
監督か。
I nodded quietly.
サトコは、おじのいじめに耐えれば、兄が帰ってくると信じることによって、今を耐え抜こうとしてるのかもしれない。でも、そんな思い込みとサトシが帰ってくるのは、サトコには悪いが、それが現実だ。
Everyone hung their heads. Everyone was thinking the same thing.
サトコは多分誰の助けも喜ばない。自分一人の力で耐え忍びたいと思ってる。でも、それを尊重してやるのが果たして正しいだろうか。俺は思わない。一時、サトコに恨まれることになろうと、サトコの意志に関わらず助けるべき時があると思う。俺はそれが今じゃないかと思ってる。
I told him all about what I saw and how I felt when I went to Satoko's house yesterday.
圭一君は話すべきだと思ってるってことだね。
もちろん、公的機関への通報で、サトコが保護されるのが確定してからだ。その確認のないうちは、サトコをかえって危険にさらすこともあり得るからな。
難しいね。先生との会話の中で、その確約ってのが取れるわけ？
I had no confidence, but we had to try. Meanwhile, Rika had her hand raised for a while, as if asking for an opportunity to speak.
圭一に任せますです。
いいのかいリカちゃん。
圭一はここにいる誰よりもサトコのことを考えていますです。その圭一が話すべき時だと判断したなら、僕は文句なんか言わないのですよ。
ありがとう。ミオンもレナもそれでいいか？
Mion seemed to hesitate, not knowing if she should agree. But when she saw Rena's firm nod, she made up her mind and did the same.
よし、行くぞ、ミオン。
うん。
Only Chie-sensei was in the teacher's lounge. We didn't see the principal anywhere. The schedule on the blackboard under the principal's name said training, going straight home. Her principal's sense of justice was too strong. Satoko's problems wouldn't be solved with something so vague. Maybe it was a stroke of good luck that he wasn't here. When the teacher saw Mian and I come in, she closed up her curry bento, saving the rest for later.
そこへおかけなさい。
She told us to take a seat in the chairs directly in front of the principal's seat. I hadn't sat in this chair since doing the paperwork for transferring in. The two of us sat there uncomfortably before the teacher walked over carrying a notebook and a ballpoint pen and sat in front of us.
前原くん、今日は午前中お休みでしたけど、何かありましたか？
すみません、寝坊です。
本当に？
先生に嘘言っても。
She narrowed her eyes at me in suspicion. Now sure of it, she wanted to talk about Satoko.
まず、二人とも知ってると思いますけど、お友達の北条さんがここしばらくお休みしてますね。
Neither Mion or I had anything to say in response, but the teacher proceeded, not minding.
何か知っていますか？クラスで良くない噂をしている人たちがいます。
Mion looked down and remained silent as though she were being lectured. She sent me a quick glance. Everyone had made up their minds. They'd be leaving things to me.
委員長？前原くんも。先生は別に怒ってるんじゃありませんよ。もしも知っていたら、教えてほしいとお願いしているだけです。
先生、先にこっちから質問してもいいですか？
She must not have anticipated that response. She looked surprised.
クラス中で聡子のどんな噂が飛び交ってるかは知りませんが、仮にその噂が真実だったとして、先生はどうするつもりですか？
どうするもこうするも、その話が本当なら放っておけません。
放っておけないって、具体的にはどう放っておけないんですか？
Specifics. Sensei's eyebrows shot up. Maybe I said it like I was trying to pick a fight.
前原くん、先生は真面目にお話ししてるんですよ。
先生こそ、俺はすごく真面目な話をしているんです。まず答えてください。真実だったとして、どう放っておけないんです？
Sensei took a few breaths, then began to speak slowly.
まず、 状況を確かめるために、北条さんの家を家庭訪問します。
おじに怒鳴りつけられて追い返されるかもしれませんね。まあいいや。仮におじと里子に会えたとします。それで？
そして、真意を聞きます。その事実が確認できたなら、指導します。
指導って曖昧な言い方はやめてください。具体的には何をするんですか？
Even despite my tone being so provocative, Chie-sensei bit back her emotions and listened calmly. I thought then that she was a good teacher. Chie-sensei really did have her students' best interests at heart. But she didn't have the power or authority to save Satoko. If she let her sense of justice run away with her, the situation would get more complex. Sensei folded her arms, and for a few moments she closed her eyes, as though mentally concentrating. And when they opened again, there was a strictness in her eyes I'd never seen before.
児童福祉法という法律があります。この法律で、児童に対する虐待は何人に対しても認められていないことが明記されています。
らしいですね。それで？
沖宮の生活相談所へ通報します。さっき、前原くんは追い返されると言いましたね。この相談所の職員は、必要に応じて警察官を同行させることができます。恫喝には絶対に屈しません。
その福祉士というお役所の人は、連絡して書類で申請して、何日後に助けに来てくれるんです？
即日です。彼らの仕事は、児童の安全を緊急に保護することですから。
知ってますよ。緊急性があると判断された場合ですよね。認められなかったら、先生と同じ、指導をして、様子見をするんですよね。見てるだけ。里子のおじの機嫌を悪くして、里子をその場に残したまま、それっきり。
ケイちゃん、ちょっと言い過ぎ。
嘘はついてないだろ。去年だか一昨年だかに、児童相談所が来た時が、まさにそうだったんだろう。その結果どうなった？俺よりも、ミオンや先生の方が、よっぽどよく知ってるだろうが！
I had said too much. I didn't need Mion to tell me that. I was talking crazy and itching for a fight. I was supposed to be telling her about the situation only after I was sure we could save Satoko, but I basically told her everything from the start. Chie-sensei looked at the clock, stood up, and picked up the phone at the principal's seat.
もしもし、内線の3455をお願いします。
いいの？ケイちゃん。本当に、大丈夫かな？
It was too late. The die had been cast. Now we could only pray.
お世話になっております。ひなみ沢文庫教諭の千恵と申しますが、指導室の渡辺主事はいらっしゃいますでしょうか？はい、ええ。ちょっと急用がございまして、至急校長と連絡が取りたいのですが、はい、お願いします。緊急とお伝えください。よろしくお願いします。
The teacher put down the phone and tilted her head back and took a breath like I always did.
二人にもう一度だけ聞きます。クラスのみんなの噂はすべて本当なんですね。
はい。俺は昨日、里子の家に行って、実際にどういうことになっているのか見ました。
あとは、先生に任せてください。里子ちゃんはきっと先生が何とかします。
なんとか？いい加減なことを言わないでください。なんとかじゃない。絶対でなければならない。もしもまた様子見なんてことになったら、先生はどう責任を取るつもりですか？
While I was yelling, the phone rang. Calm down. Chie-sensei snatched the receiver up first.
もしもし。研修中申し訳ありません。はい。実は、例の北条里子さんの件でお話が。はい。
Sensei waved us away, telling us we could leave now. Mion went to leave, but I held my ground. I had a responsibility to make sure she stopped saying such vague, ambiguous things. If it didn't look like she was going to say anything substantial, then I'd tell them the truth, even if I had to steal the phone from her.
はい。いえ、まだ相談所には。はい。まだ確認はしていませんが、クラスのこの話では相当な様子です。
相当なんてもんじゃないぞ。すぐにだ。今すぐ何とかしろ。通報するならどこへだっていい。でもな、もしも様子見なんてことになってみろ。ただじゃ済まさないからな。
I yelled angrily at Sensei and the principal on the other end. I wanted to somehow, some way, convey to them just how dangerous their situation was right now.
それは分かっています。
Stop yelling at me, I'm on the phone.
ちゃんと伝えますから。委員長、前原くんを連れて教室に戻りなさい。
はい。行くよ、ケイちゃん。あとは先生たちに任せよ。
絶対だぞ。
Until the very last moment, I glared at Sensei. Calm down, Jesus. Chie-sensei was feeling pressured by the likes of me. Idiot, this isn't the time to feel pressured. You calling your teacher an idiot? Now's the time that when you give me a firm nod to reassure me. Even so, we've already left things in her hands. At this point, we really can't do anything but pray. Bang. Mion shut the door to the teacher's lounge. Keiichi going all oishi now. Going all aggro. Oh, okay. Article. Alright. Alright, let's see this. What's the article? Oh, here we go. Definition of child abuse. The term child abuse means the following acts committed by a custodian, meaning a person who exercises the parental authority, a guardian of a minor, or other person who is currently engaged in the custody of a child. Hereinafter, the same shall apply. Against the child, meaning a person who is under 18 years of age. Hereinafter, the same shall apply. Assault the child in a manner that will cause or is likely to cause an external injury on the body of a child. Engage in indecency against the child or cause the child to engage in indecency. Substantially reduce the amount of food for a child or abandon and neglect the child for a long period in a manner that may interfere with normal development of the child mentally or physically, or otherwise materially fail to perform the duty of a custodian, or speak or behave in a manner that would significantly be traumatic to the child. Article 3. Prohibition of child abuse. No person shall abuse a child. Authorized by that guy. Okay. Year 19, whatever. Principal abusers, in cases reported to the Ministry of Health and Welfare. Total, 5,352. You don't need to put the picture of Hojo, but whatever. Mother by blood, 2,943, 55%. So it's usually the mother, huh? If I'm reading this right. Huh. Mother not by blood, 3%. Father, 27%. Huh. Father not by blood, 9%. Huh. Year 19 something. Instances by type of abuse in cases reported to the Ministry of Health and Welfare. Total 5,352. Is this by year also? Huh. Physical abuse. 51%, huh? 51%, mostly physical. Neglect, 32%. Psychological abuse, 8%. Forbidden from going to school, 1%. 75. Sexual violence, 5%. And the scary music pops in. I don't think that's happening with Teppei, though. I think that's just something that disturbs Ryokishi. So we met Takano, that was cool. I'm really enjoying her. She's crazy. And Keiichi showed how much he loves Satoko by screaming at all the girls and his teacher, calling her an idiot. But I get it, he's mad. I think something bad's really gonna happen to Teppei soon. Hopefully.